For this reason, we are using a worksheet for organizing the narrative plot. One is the students should discuss about time and place where the story happens, where, when. This is a context. Who are the actors? Then the initial situation, how the story begins, and then the adventure. What is the problem? What are the goals? And in order to solve this problem or accomplish the goal, there should be an action. And for this action, the actors will play roles. And since we are going to a climax of the action, they should start designing this climax, and then there's this solution and the closing of this whole story. And to be honest, this works. This works really good with the students. Okay, don't expect a student to, or mainly a group of students. This is not a typical individual work. Mainly this happens in a group of students that they have to discuss and decide about that. Some students, you can give roles to the students. Some students should go and look for images or for the actors. Should also write the text for the plot. You can organize it, or think that you can give specific roles to a group of students, or if you don't want to assign roles, you can just monitor the way that the students will end up with a nice narrative plot. For homework, if you want, just try to create your own story using this worksheet. You will see that it works. It works quite well, but it's not easy, believe me. Now, concerning the evaluation, think that it's since you are giving to the students a very demanding task, you have to be careful about what and how you are going to evaluate the process. Because we are talking about a learning process which is engaging and fun, but actually we have learning goals, which is multi-literacy skills of production of plurimedia. So also to understand a topic like, for example, the notion of intra-school violence, also how to use language, because using comics and writing even short sentences does not mean that students will neglect the syntax, the grammar, etc. So what you can use for that? One is a typical questionnaire just to know exactly the learning process if you want to publish or get feedback from the students. But in order to evaluate the performance, there are some assessment rubrics that give you qualitative characteristics about the comics. I hope you know rubrics, but if you don't know, a rubric is a table. This is a snapshot of that you have criteria. For example, you have a comic in your student's comic in front of you, and you want to evaluate the dialogue and captions, the functional use of languages, the language, or the how the actors interplay with the story, because sometimes students might use a clip art that does not have any relationship with the whole story. And in order to give a mark for this specific criterion, there are levels. For example, for dialogue and captions, the excellent is when dialogue and the captions promote the development of the plot and are thoroughly comprehensive. So these are qualitative way of evaluating the dialogues and captions, excellent, very good, mediocre, weak, but at the end you can give a mark. So my our idea was that you can, and actually I would like to give you an idea that you can use this rubric not only as you can use this, or not only as a medium for evaluating the comics. You, as a teacher, evaluate the comics or assess the comics, but you can use it as a self-regulation tool. So you can use this rubric and give it to the students to evaluate their own comic or evaluate the comic of a peer group. So this way you can see that students actually start thinking more critically about the stories, which is also one of the goals. Now, as an example, I would like to tell you about a really impressive case study that we did 2 years ago at a secondary school, lower secondary school. It's second grade of lower secondary, which is age of 14 years old. And students create their own version of Homer's Iliad in comics. So what was interesting is we followed the script, the learning scripts that I saw you just before, but with one variation. The students, in this experiment, there were two teachers who collaborated. One was the teacher for art, and the other was the teacher for classical studies. So students created their own characters and backgrounds, first on paper, and then at the lab, also with the use of the teacher of computer science, they made it digital. So this is some of the characters that they created, and these are some of the backgrounds, first on paper, then with the use of simple tools like GIMP and things like that. So you see, it's really nice. They were more impressive on paper than in digital, but it's really nice as an outcome. And at the end, they used this plot and they start working, as you can see, first on paper and then using the computer for finding resources, videos, and things like that. And at the end, here is a snapshot of Homer's Iliad Rhapsody A. Oops, sorry. This is the cover. And of course, everything is Greek to you. Sorry for that. And as you see, they used everything. They just put the places on that. So there are things like that. Just give me a moment just to give you another link for a webcomic. Okay, while I'm looking for that, let's continue on that, and I will find it, share it with you. Now, there are other ideas for learning activities with, how old are these students? The age are 14. It's lower secondary. And we are now using a lot about that. So think that you can work with art, teacher of art, computer science, informatics, whatever, and also any other teacher of any other subject domain, so which is really nice. So if you don't want to enter into these kind of activities, or if you want to do more warm-up activities, there is Kari, a very experienced colleague, has created a book, which you can also find it online if you type it, with ideas for learning activity comics. One is add a panel. So for example, after giving students a script, you can ask what happens next, and students create additional panels. Or you can create a comic jigsaw. So you can find ready-made comics or comic strips, and you remove the text from the comic panels, and students try either to take the missing text that you give them apart and filling the gaps. Like filling the gaps is a typical exercise, filling the gaps, but this time with missing balloons, text in the balloons. So either they have to match the dialogue with the comic panels, or you can give them freedom to write their own versions of the text in the balloons, which is really, sometimes it comes really funny. Yes, as Irene said, definitely you can do that collaboratively. We have, I think, Irene, we had some e-twinning projects, collaborative projects with that from different countries, if I remember well. Anyway, in educomics project, a few years ago, we had this typical example, these typical cases, and this is the way we ended up in all that, with students and schools from 5 countries. We had Greece, Cyprus, Italy, and UK, and Spain. So students, they shared their ideas and their creations, although they did not, some of them had the same project, but they did not collaborate for creating it. So each classroom created their own versions of comics, and they exchanged that. So other ideas for learning activities with comics is fill it up. So remove a text from a comic and students create dialogue, original dialogue, or as we said, putting panels in order. So you can actually take a comic, make it a mess, and ask students to put the comic panels into original in quotes, because sometimes you create your own version, they create their own version of a comic. So this is some ideas for warm-up. As I call them, these are warm-up activities before you enter into a more a bigger learning scenario that I gave you before. So if you want to see everything on written, there is this paper that you can find it on Educational Media International Journal. It's one of the case study, and gives all the details of the case, of the pilot case study that we used in language teaching. And we are really happy because children really liked it. So they said that it was a different course. They allowed them to activate their imagination. They felt the joy of creation, and some of them, I think most of them, told us they want to use webcomics in all courses, which was really funny, because now we have the school that we had, the secondary school that joined this experiment with the Iliad, are actually using now in most of their courses. So at least for some section in the syllabus, every year for various courses they have, as one a colleague here said, they have this comics lab tool